Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm back making videos about careers in finance and entertainment. My name is Peter. I worked as a TMT investment banking analyst at Barclays from 2016 to 2018, and since then worked at entertainment companies like Hulu and Clubhouse. I get asked all the time, is investment banking worth it? Was it worth it? Is it worth it now? I remember being a student and feeling super confused, not really knowing what I should pursue. And nowadays there's so much more information online. Also, there's so much more noise. So in this video, I'm going to list out the main pros and cons of investment banking and whether I think it's worth it in 2024, so you can think about whether it's worth it for you. Let's dive in to the pros. The first thing that people think about when they think about investment banking is the six-figure salary right out of college. I made about 100K my first year and then 170 my next year with my bonus. Super helpful to pay down my 5 figures of student debt. But if this is the only reason that you're going into investment banking, I would say maybe reconsider. With the 80 to 100 hour work weeks, with everything you have to sacrifice, I don't think this alone is worth it. But there's a lot of other pros. Next one might be a social status and prestige. A lot of us are taught that we shouldn't care about this, but I think this could matter whether you're vain or not. It's kind of like going to Harvard or something. It gets you a base layer of respect in a professional setting when you're in a conference room, when you're meeting new professionals. For example, when I got into investment banking, my relationship with my father improved because he kind of started to trust that I knew what I was doing with my life. He was a pretty intense immigrant father. He kind of got off my back about the whole life and prospects and ambition thing. As much as social media likes to roast on finance bros, I do think it also played a positive factor for me in the dating market. I didn't have to prove to women that I was ambitious and capable and had a base level of intellect, which in my experience, pretty important to women. But admittedly, I did have to prove that I wasn't a douchebag because I think people kind of raise an eyebrow when they learn that you're from investment banking, that you might be kind of a douchebag, for what it's worth. A next really great reason, and I think this is the best reason to go into investment banking, is the great training and growth that you get with investment banks. Banking is a project-based role with a ton of work to go around with millions of dollars at stake. This means that experienced employees are actively incentivized to train you. The faster you learn, the less work that they have to do, and the more money they could potentially make when they close the deal. Banks also hire hundreds of analysts every year, so they have lots of resources in place and know how to train people year after year. Compare this to smaller, regular companies. It's often the case that there isn't enough work to go around, and it's not one person's main responsibility to train you, so you don't learn quite as fast. The last main pro I have in mind is exit opportunities. While recruiting out of banking doesn't guarantee you your dream job, it does give you access to the recruiting pipelines at the coolest startups and Fortune 500 companies. Oftentimes, these companies don't even hire outside of investment banks or management consulting firms. Also, unlike medicine or law, there's a wide breadth of paths after investment banking. In finance, there's VC, private equity, and hedge funds. If you want to go corporate, there's corporate strategy, corp dev, biz dev, and corp fin. At tech companies, you might go biz ops, biz analytics, and sometimes even product management roles. All super cool paths, and you don't get pigeonholed necessarily into one path here. Now let's talk about the cons. The first one is high barrier to entry. Bulge bracket banks generally only hire from target schools. These are the Ivy Leagues, the NYUs, the U Michigans of the world. If you're not at those schools, it's gonna be hard to break into the big banks, which doesn't mean you can't go to a smaller bank and lateral in later, but something to keep in mind. You also generally need a 3.5 GPA. Recruiting and networking is like a part-time job, and so are the multiple internships and the interview studying you'll have to do. I found all this kind of intense in a fun way compared to the classroom setting that I found boring, but it's definitely not for everybody. Next is that banking is a super high stress, high intensity environment. This is partially because it's so all or nothing. 5 banks might compete for 9 months on a deal, but only the winner gets the tens of million dollars of fees. It's also because banks are more of a zero-sum game compared to corporate and tech. Senior bankers are not incentivized to be good managers, since 90% of junior bankers leave in a year or two anyways. They get much more money if they train you up and then squeeze as much work out of you as they can. Compare this to tech, where a company is much more likely to be successful by by being collaborative and innovative for the long haul. The next con is that you might be sacrificing your early 20s for a long hour, soul-sucking experience. As junior analysts and associates, you're probably juggling multiple projects, working 80 to 100-hour work weeks. This means your six-figure salary kind of works out to minimum wage. And there's gonna be chunks of hours where you're not doing much, but you might get a call at 8 p.m. for an urgent request for 5 hours of work due in 3 hours. It's intense. It's a bit like being on call as a doctor. You're at the beck and call of your MDs, except instead of saving lives, you're helping rich people get much richer. A bit soul-sucking. You might be foregoing lots of self-exploration and learning about how to live a balanced life. I think the reason people in finance get a lot of flack from the outside world, from the dating world, is because they're somewhat stunted in other aspects of their lives. They didn't learn how to make friends, have hobbies, and have interests outside of work in their early 20s like most other people did. Last con that I can think of, major one, is that it's probably not going to be great for your physical and mental well-being and your relationships. Depending on your team's culture, you could potentially avoid this con, but sometimes it's inevitable. I personally gained like 20 pounds in my first year of investment banking. I was eating out and getting takeout for every meal that I didn't skip. I chugged 2 to 4 cups of coffee a day, popped melatonin to sleep, but rarely got good sleep. I'm pretty sure I developed gut health issues and my hips got so tight that I got banker belly and anterior pelvic tilt. I wasn't hospitalized, but I know multiple people at my bank that did, and I did randomly get full body hives one year because my immune system was so low. I didn't really see my friends outside of finance. I saw my parents maybe 4 times in 2 years. Yeah, a little bit bleak. I definitely have personal accountability here. It's not all the bank's fault. I definitely should have pushed back more on work, but the fact of the matter is that this type of stuff happens very frequently to bankers and rarely in other industries. Of course, it depends on the person, your background, and what's important to you, but my take is that in 2024, investment banking is still very much worth it, especially if you are uncertain of where to start exploring, but you're generally very ambitious and you want to keep a lot of doors open. In 2024, especially since the market downturn where tech jobs have softened up a bit, they're no longer as cushy, they're no longer an obvious choice to me. Tech roles used to be 30, 40 hours a week, and you'll get equity that 4Xs in 3 years. That's no longer really the case. It's not a given anymore. And it's not that finance hasn't taken a hit with the market downturn as well. I just see them more neck to neck. I think that investment banking, along with management consulting, is still one of the most surefire ways to migrate from lower and lower middle income class to upper and upper middle income class, while leaving a lot of doors open. So if you don't want to go do a 4-year law degree, become a doctor, or become an engineer, I think it's still an amazing career opportunity. All this being said, only you can answer whether the pros outweigh the cons for yourself. So make sure you chat with multiple people in the space. Just keep in mind that 1, you can always quit if you don't like it mid-recruiting or mid-job. And 2, Wall Street isn't what you see in the movies. Notice that all the Hollywood movies that glamorize Wall Street is from decades ago. Cool. So thanks for watching this video. If you watch this far, make sure to click that like button. It lets me know that I should create more videos like this one, and click that subscribe button so you know when I post my next video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.